Bienvenue, mes héroïnes et mes héros. That goes out to my French heroines and heroes. In the previous video, we discussed one of the most common ways by which people are denied autonomy at work, through lack of personal support. In this video, I want to discuss two other domains of autonomy: outcomes and process. Outcomes autonomy refers to the tasks and goals that employees are expected to achieve at work. Now, this might seem a little paradoxical at first, but when it comes to outcomes, employees do not want a lot of freedom. Rather, what they want is clarity. That is, employees want concrete and unambiguous information on what they're expected to achieve. For example, those in sales want concrete sales targets, how much to sell and by when. Likewise, assistant professors want clarity on what it takes to get tenure, how many publications, what sort of teaching evaluations to get, etc. Gary Ridge, CEO of one of the world's best companies to work for, WD-40, thinks that lack of goal clarity is one of the biggest happiness killers at work. In his book, co-authored with Ken Blanchard, Gary makes an excellent point that in this sense, employees are different from students. Students expect uncertainty. For example, you may not know what questions you're going to be asked in the quizzes for this course, and presumably you're fine with that uncertainty, right? By contrast, you wouldn't be fine if you're uncertain about the metrics on which you will be evaluated during your year-end appraisal at work. Now, there might be situations in which an organization cannot provide goal clarity. For example, startups usually can't give employees goal clarity beyond do your best. This is because they are too new to know what's a reasonable goal. In such situations, though, employees need to be made aware of this, that they cannot have goal clarity, and that needs to be communicated really clearly. If goal clarity is important, you can bet that goal ownership is even more important. Goal ownership is about getting employee buy-in on the goals that they're expected to achieve. When I first joined the Macomb School, I was told that I would teach consumer behavior, and I was fine with it. But later, I was asked to teach something else, customer insights. That's not what I had signed up for, so I was anxious. But I soon discovered that customer insights is really just another fancy name for consumer behavior, and my anxiety faded. I felt goal ownership again, and I was all set. The best way to instill goal ownership is to find out employees' intrinsic interests and then give them tasks aligned with these interests. Another thing to do is to consult employees in setting their goals and expectations rather than setting it for them and just telling them. That won't get you employee buy-in. Yet another thing that enhances goal ownership is good communication. There is greater goal ownership in organizations in which employees are clearly and regularly informed about what they're expected to achieve. The third subdomain of outcomes autonomy is training and resources. You can give employees a lot of goal clarity and ownership, but if they do not have the adequate and proper training and resources to achieve their goals, then they clearly won't be happy. Now, if you're a big kahuna, like a Facebook or an Infosys, you can train your employees in-house. Infosys, for example, has a full-fledged training center in Mysore, India, where every new employee undergoes a 6-month training period before they start their job. But what if you're a smaller fish? Well, we happen to live in very lucky times. You can take advantage of some awesome online resources. Here's Naren Dubey talking about how Scan Cafe does this. Note that when he says, I don't have a separate department to do that, he means Scan Cafe doesn't have a separate department to train managers to be conscious leaders. Listen.
From a revenue standpoint, we are nowhere compared to what you would expect a Google or a Facebook or, the big boys have. I don't have a separate department that can do that. So I've been really lucky. I've been searching for something that enables me to do what you asked. So we use the LinkedIn Conscious Business Academy, which I think I may have mentioned in the past. And it's a beautiful 12-week curriculum that we have all our managers go through. And to me, that has been really a magic bullet because I don't think we have the wherewithal to do that.
In addition to training, employees need resources, money, equipment, etc. to achieve their goals. lack of resources can sometimes be a big reason for employee unhappiness. In many public schools in the US, teachers do not have sufficient funds to buy books for their students. So some teachers spend their own personal money to make photocopies of these books for kids. Hats off to these teachers, but can you imagine how frustrating it must be for them? Let's turn now to the final domain of autonomy at work, process autonomy. Process autonomy has to do with the freedom employees have to achieve their goals. Let's now listen to Juliet Blake, head of TV at TED, affirming the importance of process autonomy.
I think if you allow people that work for you to do things to the best of their ability in the way that they want to do them, not necessarily the way you want them to be done.
As Juliet just said, employees want freedom on how to achieve their goals, which is one of the 3 subdomains of process autonomy. As Juliet also alluded, rules often come in the way of process autonomy. That is, the more employees are forced to act in a rule-based fashion, the more they feel that their process autonomy is being curbed. This doesn't mean, of course, that organizations should do away with all their rules. Rules are needed to ensure consistency in product or service quality. For example, airlines have a rule that flight attendants should direct passengers to their seats as they enter the aircraft. This might be irritating to some passengers who know their way to their seats, but flight attendants still follow this rule because it helps lower confusion among passengers flying for the very first time who may not know how to get to their seats. Rules are also important for ensuring safety. In oil rigging companies, for example, an important rule is to stress test any new equipment before it's adopted. Otherwise, bad things can happen, like it did with BP in Deepwater Horizon, where 11 workers died. So rules are necessary. However, if the rule list is too long, then the employee's autonomy gets curbed. So organizations need to strike a balance and keep the rules to a minimum. Here's Srikanth, CEO and co-founder of Fractal, talking about minimizing 2 rules.
Extend as much trust as extreme trust. We call it extending extreme trust to people and give them as much freedom as possible. And what I mean by extreme trust is we borrowed ideas from people like Netflix, where no expense reimbursement policy, just bill what you think is appropriate and we'll be fine. Or work from anywhere, which has been very helpful for us as well. People can work from anywhere. Basically, no micromanagement of people. Let them do, because people are responsible on their own. You don't really have to watch over their shoulders, and they're more responsible where we're not watching.
Isn't it awesome that Fractal trusts its employees so much? Well, okay, so to summarize, keeping rules to a minimum is a good way to increase the how of process autonomy. The 2 other domains of process autonomy are when and where and with whom. When and where has to do with the work timings and the place from which employees do their work. With whom refers to the team with which one is working. These are relatively self-explanatory, of course, and in a couple of videos from now, Marshall will have more to say about them. That brings us to a close on the domains and subdomains of autonomy. In the next video, we're going to do something very exciting. We're going to measure the extent to which your need for autonomy is being fulfilled at work. A bientôt, my French and other heroines and heroes.